What's the best revenge you've gotten on a former boss? My boss stole my Super Bowl tickets, so I took everything from him. I want to start this off by saying I'm a huge 49ers fan. A few years ago, they made it back to the Super Bowl, so I was extremely excited to watch the game. I was working at a consulting firm with a handful of clients I would talk to daily. One client in particular, who I'll call Jeff, knew how big of a Niners fan I was. I was the day-to-day lead on his account, and he really liked working with me. We became great friends, often grabbing drinks or dinner after our meetings. At some point, he had gained access to a pair of Super Bowl tickets, and they were damn good seats. I wasn't around that day, so he gave the tickets to my boss, Richard. He asked Richard to pass them over to me, and wanted them to be a surprise. Well, the game came and went, we lost, it sucked. The next time Jeff and I met, we went to get drinks afterward and he mentioned, by the way, why weren't you at the game? I heard someone else was in your seats. I asked what game? He said, the Super Bowl. Confused, I answered I didn't go to the Super Bowl, nor did I have tickets. He told me that he gave Richard a pair of his company tickets for me as a gift so I could attend. I had no idea what he was talking about. He looked shocked, told me to quietly ask around about it and to get back to him. When I was back in the office the next week, I found out through one of the secretaries that Richard had given my pair of Super Bowl tickets to another one of his clients as a gift from our company. I might have let this sort of thing go to keep the peace under different circumstances, but these were seats on the 30-yard line to see the goddamn 49ers play in the Super Bowl. I was livid. I considered confronting Richard myself, but realized it was the client who had noticed I wasn't there in the first place, so if I let him handle it, there would be no blowback on me. So I texted him, hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for thinking of me with those seats, but it appears that they were given to another one of our firm's clients. He texted back right away, in all caps, are you kidding me? He then told me not to worry, and that he would be handling it. He followed up with me about formulating a plan. A few days later, we were asked to come down for a meeting in their office. The client requested the partner be present, not entirely unusual, so Richard and I hopped a flight the next week and headed over to their office. Little did Richard know, my client had orchestrated a wonderfully awkward little show to catch him red-handed. When we entered the conference room, it was all the usual suspects along with a woman in her 30s we didn't recognize. My client immediately introduces Richard, this is Stephanie, she's the VP from accounting, she wanted to sit in on this meeting. Hey Clive, you guys must already know each other from the Super Bowl. She then responds as she goes to shake my hand, oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there? I'm sorry if I forgot. Jeff responds, geez Steph, how much did you have to drink? Clive was sitting right next to you. Jeff looks over to me, and I say sorry Jeff, I wasn't there. Are you thinking of someone else? At this point, Richard is looking visibly uncomfortable, probably trying to come up with an excuse. He starts in with an When Stephanie says over him no, so and so from the other company were in the other seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working with them on that I don't know about? Obviously not, it was like John Deere partnered up with Coca-Cola. Richard lets out an again. And C immediately spoke over him asking Richard, I gave you those tickets for Clive, what did you do with them? At this point Richard is turning bright red. He responds well he wasn't able to make it, so he must have given the seats away to someone else? And turns to me looking for me to cover for him. Jeff smirks at me. I responded, what are you talking about? Jeff, you gave me tickets to the Super Bowl? Client suddenly raises his voice, Richard, those tickets were a personal thank you gift from me to Clive. Did you give them away to someone else? What did you do with them? Richard butts in with maybe something got mixed up in the office? Jeff went quiet for what probably seemed like an eternity to Richard. Jeff then looked down, grabbed his portfolio and iPad, put them into his briefcase, and said I think this meeting is over. Clive, it seems as if I owe you a thank you gift, let's go to lunch. Stephanie, you're welcome to join, but Richard, I need to evaluate our relationship. Please go back home and expect to hear from us next week. Richard suggests he would like to join, presumably to do damage control, but Stephanie sternly tells him I don't think that's a good idea. And asks the front desk to see Richard out. As soon as he is in the elevator, we all break out laughing hysterically. Stephanie wasn't really a VP, just an employee at the company who Jeff had drafted into helping with his pre-planned meeting skit, but she did end up coming to lunch with us and was a fellow Niners fan. We all had a blast at lunch. On our way to the restaurant, I got a desperate text from Richard saying I needed to cover for the firm and that we could discuss things when I got back. I replied, yes, we need to talk, but I'll see what I can do. Jeff told me to wait a couple hours and then gave me a list of things that I should expect before doing anything for this scumbag. 1. To expect invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets, it was around $10K, as well as our lunch, he picked a pricey spot and made a big show of overspending, and that he expected them to be paid immediately. 2. I should expect a direct apology, and Richard should have to write a written apology to Jeff's company for what Jeff considered theft. 3. Richard was not to contact Jeff again, and all of his business would be through myself, or another, more trustworthy partner. I ended up being paid by Richard, and it came to a little over $15K. At this point though, it was too late. This whole situation caused a ripple in our relationships with other partners. HR did some investigating, and found that this wasn't even Richard's first big mess up. Richard had become a liability to the company, and a week later, he had officially taken an early retirement. I actually came off looking great because it appeared that I had made a good faith effort to save C from the firm, despite being the victim in the situation. In retrospect, I really have no idea what the hell the guy was thinking. Did he seriously believe the client would just not notice me not thanking him for Super Bowl tickets?